My husband dumped me when our son was diagnosed with paralysis. 6 years later, he and his mistress came back to laugh at my suffering. But when I opened the door and they saw my son, their laughter died instantly. Before the story begins, please let us know in the comments where you are watching this from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so the Revenge with Jain channel can grow and present even more interesting stories. Outside our rental house, that afternoon was gray, as gloomy as my heart. The rain fell lightly, as if weeping for the fate that had just befallen me. 3 days ago, the pediatric specialist at the city hospital delivered the diagnosis. Words that shattered my world. Leo, my only son who was only 2 years old, was diagnosed with a rare neurological disease. He was paralyzed. His legs would not be able to move. The doctor said the prognosis was poor. He needed lifelong therapy, and the costs were very high. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching Leo sleep soundly. His breathing was steady, his face peaceful, as if unaware of the heavy burden he now carried. The scarf I wore was wet with tears that hadn't stopped for 3 days. In the corner of the room, my husband David was packing clothes into a large suitcase. Not work clothes. He was packing his favorite leather jacket, his best shirts, and the expensive bottle of cologne he had just bought last week. "David," I called softly, my voice hoarse from too much crying. "Where are you going? You've been silent for 3 days." David didn't look back. He just zipped the suitcase shut. His voice sounded cold and foreign. "I'm leaving, Sarah. I can't take it anymore." My heart felt like it was being squeezed. "Leaving? Leaving where, David? We need to find money for Leo's therapy. The doctor said..." "To hell with the doctor." David turned around, his eyes glaring at me. But it wasn't the look of a husband to his wife. It was the look of a stranger full of hatred. "I'm disgusted. Do you hear me? Disgusted. Since that child was born, our lives have been hard. And now what? Paralyzed. Disabled. Do you want me to spend the rest of my life working just to take care of a disabled kid?" Every word out of his mouth was a razor blade cutting my heart. "David, he's your son, your own flesh and blood. How can you call him a disabled kid?" David laughed, a terrifying laugh, full of mockery. "My son? I'm not even sure he's mine. Maybe he's the result of what you were doing behind my back." A slap might not have felt as painful as this. I was speechless, shocked. "My God, David, do you realize what you're saying?" "I realize it perfectly." He grabbed his bag. He walked quickly to the small cabinet where I kept all our documents and the rest of our money. I kept a brown envelope there. It contained $3,000. It wasn't David's money. It was the money I got from selling my only wedding ring and my mother's heirloom bracelet, specifically to pay the down payment for Leo's therapy next week. I saw his hand grab the envelope. "No, David," I screamed, trying to run and block him. "That's money for Leo. That's his therapy money." David pushed me. My small body stumbled and hit the wall. "Move," he barked, putting the envelope into his pocket. He didn't stop there. He took the bank book from the drawer. He knew I didn't have an ATM card. Tomorrow he would surely drain it all. "David, please," I cried, crawling to hold his leg. "Don't take that money. Take everything in my wallet. Take whatever jewelry is left, but not Leo's money. He needs that therapy. If not, he'll be paralyzed forever. I beg you, David." David kicked my hand until my grip broke. He looked at me with disgust, as if I were filth stuck to his shoe. Then he did the thing that shattered my heart the most. He walked to the bed where Leo was sleeping. He looked at tiny, helpless Leo. I thought, maybe, just maybe, there was a shred of a father's love left in his heart. Maybe he would waver. A burden, he hissed softly. Just a lifelong burden. He turned, dragging his suitcase to the front door. I, with the remaining strength I had, picked up Leo, who had woken up from the noise and started crying. I ran after him to the porch. The rain was getting heavier. "David, don't go! David!" There, I saw it. A shiny car, which I didn't know belonged to whom, stopped right in front of our gate. The engine was running, and the passenger window rolled down. Inside sat a woman. Vanessa, the secretary at David's office. The woman I had always dismissed my suspicions about. She wore bright red lipstick and smiled cynically at me. David opened the trunk, threw in his suitcase, and then hurried into the driver's seat. Vanessa laughed loudly, a high-pitched laugh of victory. Before David hit the gas, Vanessa purposely leaned out the window. "Goodbye, Sarah. Just take care of your disabled kid. Let David have fun with me." The car sped away, splashing through the puddles on the road. The dirty water splashed onto my clothes and face. I stood frozen. The cold rain was not as cold as my heart, which was now frozen. Leo's crying in my arms grew louder. He was cold. I sat down on the wet, dirty porch floor, my body shaking violently. My husband, the father of my child, was gone. He left with another woman. He took all our assets. He took the money I was supposed to use to heal my son. He took it and laughed at me. The door was closed. There was only me, my sick son, and a bank account that I knew would be empty by tomorrow. They thought we would slowly die. The first morning after David left was the longest morning of my life. The sun rose, but its light couldn't penetrate the darkness inside this cramped rental room. I hadn't slept for a second. My eyes were swollen, and my body ached after sitting on the floor all night holding Leo. Leo had a fever. His crying had stopped last night from exhaustion, but now he started whimpering again. His whimpers were soft, but sounded like screams in my ears. He was hungry. I stood up. My legs were cramped. I walked to our small kitchen. I opened the fridge. Empty. David had even taken the remaining dry food and Leo's box of formula. I opened the rice container. Empty. I checked my wallet on the table. Empty. $0. That man truly hadn't left us a single cent for food today. Panic began to spread through my chest. I didn't care about my own stomach, but Leo had to eat. He needed milk and fever medicine. Swallowing my immense shame, I carried Leo and walked to the small grocery store at the end of the alley. My scarf was still damp from last night's rain. "Mrs. Miller," I called softly. Mrs. Miller, who was arranging eggs, looked up. Her face immediately turned cynical. The news must have spread already. "What is it, Sarah? Why so gloomy this early?" Tears almost fell again. I looked down. "Ma'am, can I please get Leo's formula and some fever medicine on credit? Leo has a fever." Mrs. Miller put down an egg roughly. "Credit? Where's your husband? Last night I saw him with a big suitcase. Did he run off?" A neighbor buying spices chimed in. "Oh my God! He really ran off? Left her? How pitiful!" My face felt hot. I pulled my scarf tighter. "I will definitely pay, Mom, as soon as I have the money." Mrs. Miller snorted. "Everyone says that." But she still took a can of formula and a pack of medicine. Here, if it's not paid by next week, I'm taking this to the neighborhood association. Thank you, Mom. Thank you so much, I said as I hurried away, unable to bear the whispers behind me. A week passed like hell. I lived off credit from Mrs. Miller's store, and every day her stares grew sharper. I tried to find a job, but who would accept a mother with a paralyzed child who had to be carried everywhere? On the 7th day, my nightmare became a reality. The rental door was pounded on loudly, not by David, but by Mr. Henderson, the landlord, along with a local official. Sarah, Mr. Henderson said without preamble, the rent is 3 months overdue. David promised to pay in full this week, but I called and his number is disconnected. He's not here anymore, is he? I nodded weakly. I'm sorry, sir. I don't want to hear it. He cut me off. I need the money. If you can't pay today, you have to vacate this house, right now. Now? My eyes widened. But where should I go, sir? I have a sick child. Give me just 1 week, I'll find... There's no time. He snapped. I've lost 3 months already. Get out. Mr. Henderson ordered 2 men he brought to go inside. They started throwing out my things. Our thin mattress, a small plastic wardrobe, pots and plates. Everything was tossed onto the muddy street. I could only cry while holding Leo. People in the alley watched. Some whispered with pity, others with scorn. I felt exposed. I felt humiliated. That afternoon, Leo and I officially became homeless. We sat on the side of the road next to our pile of junk. As night fell and the air grew colder, I picked up Leo, brought 1 backpack of our clothes, and walked with no destination. I stopped at a small community chapel. That night, we slept on the cold chapel porch, resting on used cardboard I found in the trash. The next day, I had to rise. I couldn't die. Leo couldn't die. I left Leo for a moment with the chapel caretaker, an old woman who took pity on us. I walked through the market, asking anyone, "Is there any work, Mom? Anything? I can wash, iron, clean." After dozens of rejections, a local restaurant owner finally gave me a job. "You wash dishes in the back, piecework, $30 a day. But don't bring your kid here, he'll be a nuisance." $30. What was that enough for? But I took it. I then found a solution. I spoke with the old woman at the chapel. I offered her half my wages, $15, to watch Leo from morning until evening. She agreed. Thus began my routine. At 4 in the morning, I woke up, prayed, and prepared Leo. At 5, I ran to the market to wash mountains of dirty plates, smelling of grease and leftovers. My hands, once smooth, began to blister and sting. At 5 in the evening, I finished, picked up Leo, and returned to the chapel porch. But I didn't forget my goal. Leo had to get well. With the remaining $15 a day, I saved desperately. I only ate leftover food from the restaurant that I was allowed to bring home. After 2 weeks, my money was collected. I heard from people at the market about a traditional nerve therapist in the next town, Mr. Sullivan. He wasn't a doctor, but they said he was gifted and his fees were low. I carried Leo, walking 5 miles under the scorching sun to that town. Mr. Sullivan's place was just a simple wooden shack. Many people were waiting. When it was Leo's turn, Mr. Sullivan, a thin old man with hands that looked incredibly strong, examined Leo's legs. "They're stiff, Mom. The nerves haven't moved in a long time. They need to be shocked back to life," he said with a thick accent. Then, Without warning, he began to massage and forcefully move Leo's legs. Leo screamed at the top of his lungs, a scream of pain I had never heard before. I jumped, wanting to stop him. "Sir, please, gently! My son is in pain!" Mr. Sullivan looked at me sharply. "Hold on, Mom. If he can't handle it, this boy will never walk. These nerves must be forced back to life. Screaming is good. It means he can still feel." Mr. Sullivan continued the therapy. Leo screamed, cried, and called for me. I covered my mouth with the edge of my scarf, holding back my own sobs. Tears streamed down my face, wetting Leo. I saw the faces of David and Vanessa laughing in my mind's eye. Leo must get well. Leo must get well, I whispered to myself. 30 minutes felt like 30 years. When it was over, Leo was weak and silent, falling asleep in my arms from the exhaustion of crying. 3 times a week, Mom. Don't stop. This is a hard struggle, Mr. Sullivan said. I walked home carrying the sleeping Leo. My back felt like it was breaking. My heart was shattered hearing my son's screams. But within that wreckage, something grew. A will of steel. That night, on the chapel porch, I massaged Leo's legs again, imitating Mr. Sullivan's movements. Leo cried in pain again. I cried with him, but my hands didn't stop. They said he would never move, but I would fight fate. I would make him walk, even if it took my blood and tears. 2 years passed. 2 years that felt like 20. Our lives slowly shifted, but they didn't become easy. We no longer slept on the chapel porch. After 6 months of working like a slave at the restaurant, plus taking on laundry and ironing jobs from neighbors near the chapel, I managed to save enough money to rent a tiny room, 10 by 10 feet, in a cramped, muddy alley. This was our palace. The walls were thin plywood. The roof was corrugated metal that was deafening when it rained, and the floor was just rough concrete. We slept on a single thin folding mattress. In the corner was a one-burner stove and a pile of ironing that seemed never-ending. But this place had a door that could be locked. We had privacy. We had a certain shelter. During those 2 years, my routine didn't change. In the early morning, I took Leo to the house of the chapel caretaker, whom I now considered my own mother. Then I ran to the restaurant. In the afternoon, I picked up dirty laundry, and at night, after picking up Leo, I ironed until past midnight. And the therapy. We never missed therapy with Mr. Sullivan. 3 times a week, I carried Leo, walking miles to his house. Leo's screams had greatly diminished. At 4 years old, he was a little warrior. He no longer screamed in pain. When Mr. Sullivan twisted his stiff legs, Leo would only close his eyes, bite his lower lip, and squeeze my hand tightly. His face would turn red from holding back the pain, but he didn't cry. The struggle bore fruit. The first miracle came slowly. Leo's legs, which were once like lifeless dry branches, began to fill out. He could already sit up straight without leaning. His toes, if I tickled them with a feather, could move a little. And most importantly, his hands and arms became very strong. He used them to drag his body across our rough concrete floor. But I saw something else. Leo was a bright child, very bright. Because his body limited him, his world was what he saw from our doorway. He would sit for hours, watching me iron, watching other children running in the mud, watching a cat sleeping on the roof. He observed everything. One day, I saw him doodling in the dust on the concrete floor. He was drawing. not just ordinary children's scribbles. He drew the sleeping cat with very accurate proportions. He drew the children running, catching their movement perfectly. That was when I realized his body might be imprisoned, but his mind must not be. He needed stimulus. He needed a bigger window to see the world. I started saving again. Not for therapy, this time for something different. For 6 months, I was willing to cut my food rations. I only ate rice with leftover gravy from the restaurant, without any meat. Every cent of change from shopping, I tucked under our folding mattress. Finally, after 6 months, I had $300. I went to a second-hand electronics market. I found a tablet. It was a very old model. The screen was cracked in the corner, and the body was scuffed. But the seller said the internal parts still worked. That night, I gave the tablet to Leo. His eyes, usually calm, sparkled incredibly. "Is this for me, Mom?" he asked in disbelief. "Yes, son, for you to learn. But don't just play games," I said. As it turned out, I was wrong. I should have let him play games. I downloaded some free apps, drawing apps, and some simple educational games. In a week, Leo had mastered them all. In 2 weeks, he started to get bored. "Mom," he said one afternoon, "this game is bad. The monster should be able to jump higher." I smiled. "Well, then you make your own good game." I said it as a joke, but Leo took it seriously. "How do I do that, Mom?" I was silent. I, a high school graduate working as a dishwasher, had no idea how to make a game. But I saw the sincerity in his eyes. That night, after Leo went to sleep, I went to the chapel. Not to sleep, but to use the free Wi-Fi there. I sat on the porch, shivering in the cold, typing into Leo's tablet. How to make a game for kids. I found an app, a simple visual coding app where you just need to drag and drop command blocks. I downloaded it for Leo. Since that day, Leo found his world. He sat cross-legged on the mattress, his small, strong fingers moving nimbly across the cracked tablet screen. He was immersed for hours. He no longer just drew. He made his drawings move. He created characters and gave them commands. He muttered to himself, "Wrong. If it hits this, it should go back to the start, not die." I watched him from the corner of my eye while ironing. I didn't understand what he was doing, but I saw incredible focus. I saw the fire in his eyes. Then, one night, the second miracle happened. That night was a therapy night. Leo's legs felt very stiff. Mr. Sullivan said this was the muscle-locking phase, where the muscles fight back before finally giving in. Leo was in a lot of pain that day. That night, I massaged his legs with oil, as usual. "Come on, son. Fight the pain. Move them. Leo can do it," I whispered, holding back tears as I saw him wince. Leo was holding his tablet with one hand. He was working on his simple game project, a square character that had to jump over other square obstacles. But he was stuck. The jump command wasn't working. The character wouldn't jump. He stared at the tablet in frustration, his face turning red. At the same time, I was holding his ankle, giving him stimulation. "Move it, Leo. Come on, son." "It's hard, Mom," Leo shouted, frustrated. I didn't know if he was frustrated because of his legs or because of his game. "Leo can do it. Mom knows you can. Come on," I urged. Leo screamed loudly, closed his eyes, and exerted all his strength. And at that very second, 2 things happened simultaneously. On the tablet screen, the square character suddenly jumped perfectly over the obstacle. Leo had found the right combination of commands, and under my hand, His right leg kicked. Not a strong kick, just a small stiff jerk, but it was a conscious movement. He moved it. I froze, my hands shaking. Leo opened his eyes. He stared at the tablet screen that had succeeded, then stared at his leg. He looked at me. "Mom," he whispered, confused. My leg moved. I couldn't hold it back anymore. I dropped the tablet onto the mattress and hugged Leo. I cried uncontrollably. They weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of victory. "You did it, son. Leo, you're going to walk. Oh my God." That night, God gave me 2 miracles at once. He began to bring my son's legs back to life, and at the same time, He showed me that inside my son's head was a diamond. The events of that night changed everything. The air inside our cramped room felt full of hope. We were no longer just victims surviving. We were a team fighting to win. I realized I had 2 major tasks. First, to heal Leo's physical body. Second, to facilitate his mind. Leo's leg being able to jerk was just the beginning. Mr. Sullivan was very happy when I told him. "That's a good sign, Sarah. The nerves are connected. Now we enter the training stage. No more forcing." The therapy became more intense. Mr. Sullivan taught me how to make a simple walker from wood. Every day I trained Leo. I held him from behind, forcing him to plant his feet on the concrete floor. He fell, stood up again, and fell again. His knees were bruised and bleeding. Sweat and tears mixed together. Leo, now 5 years old, started to complain. "It hurts, Mom. I'm tired." "Just a little longer, son," I said, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "Later, when you can walk, you can make a game about a hero who falls 100 times but gets up 111 times. It'll be so cool." The motivation worked. Leo would nod, wipe his tears, and say, "Let's go again, Mom." While his physical body was being tempered, his mind developed wildly. The cracked tablet was no longer enough. His fingers were too fast for the slow touch screen. He needed a laptop. Where could I get a laptop? They cost thousands. I made a crazy decision. I sold my last piece of jewelry, a small gold earring, the only heirloom from my mother that I had hidden from the world. I sold it. It fetched $900. I took it to a used electronics center. I got an old laptop, very old. It was bulky, the color was off-white, and the screen was still thick. But that laptop had a keyboard. When Leo saw the laptop, he looked like he was seeing a treasure. "Thank you, Mom," he said, his eyes never leaving the machine. This is where my second task began. I realized I could no longer rely on instinct. I had to learn. Every night, after Leo fell into an exhausted sleep from his walking practice, and after the last pile of ironing was finished, I didn't sleep. I walked to the chapel. At 1 in the morning, on the quiet chapel porch, accompanied by mosquitoes, I turned on the old laptop and connected to the free Wi-Fi. My hands, rough from dish soap and the heat of the iron, began learning to type. I learned. I read every article I could find. What are game assets? What is pixel art? What is graphic design? Where do people sell digital works? What is a freelancer? What is a portfolio? What is PayPal? I learned basic English from online dictionaries. Words like buy, sell, client, payment, project. I wrote them down in a used notebook. I was a housewife who became a CEO overnight, the CEO of a one-employee company, which was my own son. During the day, when Leo wasn't in therapy, he would sit in front of his old laptop, I bought him a sketch pad and cheap colored pencils. Draw it on paper first, son. Think of something good, then put it into the laptop. And Leo drew. He drew knights, dragons, monsters, magical trees, and castles. His drawings had a unique style. Simple, blocky, which I later learned was called pixel art, but very detailed and full of character. "This is the Fire Knight, Mom," he said, showing his drawing. "His sword can emit fire, but his weakness is water." "Great, son. Now try to make him move in 3 ways: standing, walking, and attacking," I said, repeating what I had read in an article on how to make game assets for beginners. Leo worked on it diligently. He drew square by square in the free app I had downloaded on his laptop. 2 months later, we had our first portfolio. 1 set of a Fire Knight with 10 movements, 1 set of cave monsters with 5 variations, and 1 set of treasures and coins. Now the hardest part, selling them. That night, on the chapel porch, I created an account on a small site where independent game developers buy and sell assets. I used my name, Sarah Designs. I uploaded Leo's work. I was so nervous. How do I set the price? I looked at other people's work. On average, the price was $10. I was scared. I set the cheapest price on the whole site, $3 for all of Leo's work. $3, or about what I made in half a day at the restaurant back then. I pressed the upload button. A day passed, and nothing happened. 2 days, nothing. A week, empty. Leo started to worry. "Why hasn't anyone bought it, Mom?" "Be patient, son. Maybe they haven't seen it yet." "Just make something even better," I said, hiding my own disappointment. I almost gave up. Maybe this was just a dream. Maybe no one wanted my son's work. Maybe I was just a mother pushing too hard. That night, in the 2nd week, I was ironing a client's dress. I was exhausted. The clock on the wall showed 2 in the morning. Suddenly, my old phone, which I had placed next to the pile of clothes, went ping. Not an SMS, not a call. It was the sound of an email notification. I stopped ironing, my hands shaking as I reached for the phone. I opened the email from PayPal. Subject: "You have received a payment." I opened the email. My heart felt like it stopped beating. "Congratulations, Sarah Designs. You have received a payment of $3 from a buyer for the item Pixel Fire Knight Asset Pack. $3. I sat down on the floor. Tears fell, landing on the dress I was ironing, making a small hissing sound. I cried silently. Not because of the amount. $3 was only enough for 2 days of Leo's vitamins. I cried because it was proof. Proof that we could do it. Proof that my son's work was recognized. Proof that someone on the other side of the world, the email mentioned the buyer was from Canada, was willing to pay for something created by my son in this cramped room. I immediately ran to the bed, shaking Leo's body. "Son, wake up! Wake up!" Leo woke up, his eyes red from sleepiness. "What is it, Mom? Is there a fire?" I showed my phone screen in front of his face. "It's sold, Leo! It's sold! Someone bought your work. $3. Leo rubbed his eyes. He saw the phone screen, and a smile slowly spread across his face. The most beautiful smile I had ever seen. "Really, Mom? Really, son? Really?" We hugged tightly in the middle of the quiet room, amidst the piles of ironing. The next day, I cashed out the money. I didn't buy food. I didn't buy clothes. I took Leo to Mr. Sullivan. "Sir," I said, "today, Leo will have 2 therapy sessions. Here is the money." Then I went to the pharmacy. I bought Leo the best bottle of vitamins on the shelf and an expensive ointment to treat the bruises on his knees. That night, Leo watched me as I applied the ointment to his knees. "Mom," he said, "tomorrow I want to make a robot, a cooler robot, so it sells for $5. I smiled. "Make it, son. Make a lot of them. We'll save the money. We'll buy a good wheelchair so I won't get tired of carrying you anymore." Leo shook his head. "No, Mom. Let's save the money to buy robot legs for me." I was stunned. Then I laughed. My son's dream was much bigger than mine. Since that night, I knew we would succeed. Every dollar produced by his mind, we invested in healing his legs. We were building our kingdom, step by step, from zero. 6 years. 6 years is a long time. That's 72 months, or more than 2,000 days. To me, those 6 years were 2,000 battles I fought, one by one, from dawn until late at night. That first $3 sale was the spark. That night, I didn't sleep. After Leo fell back asleep, I went back to the chapel porch. Not to iron, but to turn on our old laptop. I used the remaining money from selling my earring to buy a small internet package on my phone. I could no longer depend on the slow chapel Wi-Fi. I had to be serious. I stayed up all night, studying other sites. I saw works being sold for $20, $50, even $100. I compared them with Leo's work. Honestly, Leo's work was no less impressive. In fact, his designs were cleaner and had stronger character. I realized I had been wrong. I sold them too cheaply because I felt we weren't worthy of being valued. I felt like we were beggars in the digital world. The next day, I said to Leo, "Son, Mom needs help. Can you make me another set, this time with a robot theme? Evil robots and good robots, complete with their weapons." Leo, who had just finished his walking practice and was resting, nodded enthusiastically. "Ready, Mom? I already have an idea." For a whole week, Leo worked like a professional. He drew in his sketchbook, erased, redrew, then transferred it to the laptop. He worked with a terrifying focus for a child his age. He didn't just make 2 robots. He made 5 evil robots, 2 good robots, 10 types of weapons, and 5 arena backgrounds. He called it the Cyber War Pack. That night, I uploaded it. My hands shook as I typed the price. No longer $3. I typed $50, $50. That was almost a week's wages at the restaurant. I felt crazy. This price was too high. I closed the laptop and tried to sleep, but I couldn't. The next morning, the email notification came. "You have received a payment, $50 USD. I sat down, feeling weak. It worked. It turned out we were worth it, but that wasn't the miracle. The miracle came an hour later. A new email from the buyer. He wasn't an anonymous buyer. He listed his name, Mark Johnson, lead developer, Star League Games. The email was in English. I read it slowly, word by word, translating it with the help of an online dictionary. "Dear Sarah Designs, I just bought your Cyber War Pack. I must say, this is the best pixel art I've seen this year. I'm surprised it's sold so cheaply. My team is developing a new game. We need 10 more robot characters in the same style. Can you do it? This is a contract job. We will pay you $1,000 for those 10 characters. $1,000. I read the number repeatedly, $1,000. My hands shook so much that my phone fell onto the mattress. That was money I had never seen in my life. That was an amount that even David, with his manager's salary, couldn't save in several months. I immediately replied, "Yes, we can. Thank you." Since that day, our lives changed. That $1,000 entered my PayPal account a week later. The first thing I did wasn't to buy new clothes or move from our cramped room. I took Leo to the best private hospital in the city. I took him to the most expensive orthopedic and medical rehabilitation specialist. I no longer cared about the cost. The doctor, a friendly middle-aged man, examined Leo's legs carefully. He looked at the X-rays. He admired the results of Mr. Sullivan's therapy. "That therapy was great, Sarah. It kept his muscles alive," he said. "But now," he continued, "we enter the technology stage. His muscles are ready. His nerves are connected. Now we need to train his brain to command those muscles correctly. He needs professional physical therapy 3 times a week. He needs better nutrition. And he needs this." The doctor showed a picture of a device. "This is an orthosis, a custom-made leg brace. It will help support his ankles as he learns to step." It was expensive, very expensive, but I immediately said, "I'll take it, doctor. When can Leo start?" The second priority was our equipment. I went to a computer store. I chose a new laptop, a sophisticated one with a clear screen. I chose a digital drawing tablet, which allowed Leo to draw directly onto the computer. Our cramped room now looked strange. On one side were the piles of ironing and the old stove. On the other side was technology worth over $10,000. Leo was a hard worker. In the morning, he underwent painful physical therapy. He learned to step using his leg braces. He cried, but he didn't give up. In the afternoon, he sat in front of his new laptop, drawing, designing. His fingers danced across the drawing tablet. The $1,000 contract was finished in 2 weeks. Our client, Mark, was very satisfied. He gave us a $200 bonus, and he gave us a new contract. This time, $3,000. Sarah Designs began to be known in the indie game developer community. Clients came one after another, from Canada, from Germany, from Japan. They didn't know that Sarah Designs was a genius 6-year-old boy and a mother who used to wash dishes. They only knew our work was high quality and always finished on time. I, on the other hand, evolved. I was no longer just a dishwasher. I was a project manager. I was a negotiator. I learned basic accounting. I learned time management. I learned English more seriously. After 6 months, our income was stable. Very stable. That day, I made a decision. I went to the restaurant. "Ma'am," I said to the owner, "this is my last day washing dishes. I also returned all the ironing to the customers. Sorry, Mom, I'm moving." They were shocked. They thought I had gone crazy. 1 week later, Leo and I moved. We moved from that muddy, cramped room. We rented a small house in a clean residential complex. 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a small backyard. This was our new palace. And it was here, in this new house, that Leo, now 7 years old, finally took his first steps without help. I was cooking in the kitchen. He was practicing walking in the living room, supervised by the therapist who now came to the house. Suddenly, I heard the therapist scream softly. I ran to the living room, and I saw it. Leo was standing in the middle of the room, no braces, no crutches. He was shaky, but he was standing. "Mom," he said, tears welling in his eyes, "look, Leo is standing." "Come on, son," I said, my own tears flowing freely. I stretched out my arms. "Walk to me, walk to Mom." He lifted his right leg, stepped, then his left leg, stepped, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. He stumbled and fell into my arms. We both cried on the floor. 6 years. 6 years of struggle. My son was finally walking. Time rolled by even faster after that. Our business exploded. From just selling assets, Leo started learning to design game levels. He learned basic coding. He was no longer just an artist. He was a game designer. I changed Sarah Designs from a pseudonym to an official company. Leo Star Creations LLC. I rented a small office for us. I hired 2 young graphic designers to help Leo. Leo, at 8 years old, was the creative director of his own company. And today, exactly 6 years after David left, I stand on the porch of our new home, no longer a rental. This is a house I bought in cash, a large house in an elite neighborhood, 2 stories with a vast garden and a small swimming pool. I look at the garden. There, Leo is playing. Not playing games. He is playing soccer. Alone, kicking the ball into a small goal. He runs. He jumps. He kicks the ball hard. Healthy. Perfect. There is no trace of paralysis at all. He has grown into a handsome, smart, and confident boy. "Mom!" he shouted from the garden. "The client from Japan just sent an email. They love the new level design. The bonus has arrived." I smiled. "Thank God, son. That's enough playing for now. Shower, then have lunch. This afternoon we'll discuss the new project from the German client." "Ready, Mom," Leo shouted, then ran fast into the house. As he passed me, I closed my eyes, feeling the gentle breeze on my face. The scarf I wore was now made of soft silk. My hands were no longer rough. Our lives were perfect. Happiness, success, and love. But today, the devil from the past decided to return. My doorbell rang. I walked to the living room, looking at the intercom monitor on the wall. On the black and white screen, I saw 2 figures, a man and a woman. Their faces were older, thinner, and looked tired. But I recognized them. I would recognize them even in hell, David and Vanessa. For 6 years, I had waited for this moment. My heart beat fast, not out of fear, but because of a vengeance that was finally ready to be paid. I was ready. I stared at the intercom screen for a few seconds. The world around me seemed to stop spinning. The sound of Leo's laughter from the bathroom suddenly went quiet in my ears. All I heard was my own heartbeat, pounding like a war drum. On the screen, David looked restless. He straightened his jacket, which seemed a bit too large for his thinner body. His hair was thinning at the front. He looked old. Beside him, Vanessa crossed her arms. Her makeup was thick, trying hard to cover the fact that luxury had faded from her. Her bright red dress looked tacky in front of the gate of my elegant home. They looked exactly as I had imagined. 2 people who had lost. David's hand went up, about to press the bell again. Before he could, I pressed the talk button. "Who are you looking for?" I asked. My own voice sounded foreign, calm and cold. David and Vanessa were startled by my voice. They looked at each other. "Sarah?" David's voice sounded shaky. "It's me, Sarah. David." I was silent for a moment. I let them wait in uncertainty. "What do you want?" We just want to visit, Sarah. It's been a long time since we saw you. We heard you live here. Can we come in for a moment?" "Visit?" A word that sounded so rotten coming out of his mouth. "Leo!" I shouted into the house, my voice staying calm. "Son, stay in your room, okay? Just play on the computer. Mom has a guest for a moment." "Okay, Mom," Leo shouted back. I looked back at the intercom. I didn't want Leo to see them. Not yet. This was my business. I pressed the gate release button. Click. The tall wrought iron gate slid open automatically with a soft hissing sound. From the screen, I saw their expressions. They were stunned. They surely didn't expect me to live in a house with an automatic gate. They probably thought I lived here as a mistress or was dependent on a rich new husband. I turned off the screen. I didn't need to see them walking. Let them enjoy the short journey from the gate of humiliation to the door of justice. I walked to the main door, a solid oak door 10 feet tall. I stood behind it. I took a long breath. I calmed my heart. This was no longer the Sarah crying on the porch floor. This was no longer Sarah the dishwasher. This was Sarah, the president director of Leo Star Creations LLC, the mother of a genius. I could hear their footsteps on the marble porch, hesitant footsteps. Then the doorbell rang. I turned the key and opened the door wide. We faced each other. 6 years. David's face stared at me, his jaw tightened. His eyes radiated a mixture of shock, envy, and I saw it, an unmistakable greed. Vanessa, behind him, looked at me from head to toe. My silk scarf, my elegant blouse, my long skirt. She was comparing me to herself, and I could see in her eyes she knew she had lost completely. Sarah, David said first, trying to smile. The smile looked stiff. You look different. Time changes everything, David, I replied flatly. Please come in. I turned and walked ahead into the living room, not waiting for them. I purposely let them see the luxury of this house. The living room with high ceilings, imported leather sofas, and a large abstract painting that cost more than all the assets they once stole from me. They entered slowly, like thieves entering a palace. Their eyes darted everywhere. Insane, Vanessa whispered, but I could still hear it. This house, David, her husband must be incredibly rich. They sat on the edge of the sofa, looking awkward. Vanessa sat beside him. So, I said, sitting in a single chair facing them. I sat up straight, my hands calm in my lap. After 6 years, what brings you here? You don't look like you came for a visit. David cleared his throat, trying to gather his confidence. He put on a pathetic face, the face he used to use to lie to me. Sarah, I know I was wrong. I regret it. You regret it? I asked. Regret leaving me, or regret leaving me before I became like this? David was shocked. He didn't expect me to be this sharp. It's not like that, Sarah. Our life hasn't been going well. Vanessa. She's been sickly. My business went bankrupt. You're bankrupt. I finished his sentence. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Vanessa's face turned red. What do you mean? We're fine, she snapped. I smiled thinly. Oh, really? Then why is the sedan you used to run away in now parked outside my gate with a to-be-repossessed sticker still on the window? David's face turned pale instantly. Vanessa fell silent. They didn't know I saw it from the gate's CCTV camera. Their confidence crumbled in an instant. Their masks shattered. We need help, Sarah, David finally admitted. His voice was faint, like a beggar's. We heard you're successful. You got married again, right? Your husband must be an important man. Surely he doesn't know about the problem. Vanessa chimed in, her tone cynical. He doesn't know that you have a child. A child like that, right? This was the moment I was waiting for. They had taken the bait. So, you came here to blackmail my new husband? I asked, still in a calm tone. Not blackmail, David interjected quickly. We just think of it as hush money. Give us a little money and we'll go. We won't disturb your perfect new life. We won't tell your husband that he married a widow with a child. A child what? I interrupted. Silence fell over the room. David and Vanessa looked at each other. They thought they had reached the core of the conversation. They thought I was hiding Leo. They thought Leo was my shame in this new life. David smiled slyly. He felt he was holding the cards. "Come on, Sarah," he said, his tone now turning arrogant. "We both know your rich husband wouldn't want to carry a burden. He surely doesn't know about—" David purposely trailed off. He leaned forward, staring at me with the same insulting look as 6 years ago. He chuckled, a belittling laugh. "How is that disabled kid doing?" David's laugh echoed in the spacious living room, the same laugh I heard 6 years ago on the porch. A laugh that belittled, a laugh that insulted, a laugh that celebrated someone else's suffering. I stared at him, straight into his eyes. I didn't blink. In the past, that laugh would have broken me. That laugh would have made me cry, beg, and feel worthless. But today, that laugh sounded pathetic. "Why are you silent, Sarah?" Vanessa added, her voice shrill. She joined in the laughter, feeling they had the upper hand. "It's true, isn't it? Your rich husband must be ashamed to have a disabled stepson. That's why you hide him, right? Where is he? In the back room? Or at an orphanage?" Vanessa stood up. She walked around the sofa, touching the surface of an expensive ceramic vase on the table. "I'm sure you told your new man that the kid is dead, right? Just admit it. It's easier that way than having to explain that you have a defect." Every word they spoke was fuel they poured on themselves. And I just held the match, waiting for the right time. "So," I said softly, my calm voice contrasting with their hysterical laughter. "You come here, after 6 years of dumping us, after stealing all our money. You come to my house, accuse me, and insult my son. For what?" "Money, of course," Vanessa spat. "We know you must have a lot. Look at this house." David raised his hand, trying to look more diplomatic. His cunning face returned. Sarah, don't misunderstand. We don't mean any harm. Think of this as compensation. We've kept the secret for this long." "What secret?" I asked. "The secret about Leo. The secret about that disabled kid," David said, his tone now impatient. "Come on. You think we're stupid. You live in luxury like this. You're definitely hiding him. Your husband is a respected man, right? He wouldn't want his name tarnished because he has a stepson who is, well, paralyzed. Not normal." David leaned forward. "Give us $500,000. A small amount for you. Give us that money, and we'll go. Gone. We'll act like that kid never existed. Your husband will never know." $500,000. Once. $3,000 was my son's life. Now he mentioned this figure as if he were buying peanuts. $500,000, I repeated. I smiled, a thin, cold smile that made their laughter slowly die. They saw something was wrong. My reaction wasn't the reaction of someone afraid. It wasn't the reaction of someone whose secret was exposed. "Why are you smiling?" Vanessa asked suspiciously. "I'm smiling," I said, "because the two of you haven't changed one bit. Still stupid, still greedy, and still blind." "Watch your mouth," David barked. He stood up. Anger now replaced his arrogance. He felt insulted. "We came here in good faith. Don't be disrespectful. Where are you hiding that kid? Where is Leo?" "Yes, where is he?" Vanessa also stood up. She looked down the hallway beside the living room that led to the bedrooms. "Let me see for myself. Let me take a photo. Let me show your husband what a rotten secret you're keeping." Vanessa started to walk. "In this room? Or in the back?" "Stop," I said. That one word I spoke was not very loud, but full of authority. Vanessa froze in place. For a few seconds, the room was totally silent. Only the sound of the wall clock ticking was heard. "You," I said as I slowly stood up. I straightened the edge of my scarf. "You really want to meet Leo?" David and Vanessa looked at each other. They saw the calmness in my eyes and they misinterpreted it. They thought it was defeat. They thought I was going to give up. David laughed again, this time a laugh of victory. "Of course. We want to see. We want to see the proof. We want to see that disabled kid, if he's still alive or if he's rotting in his room." The words "rotting" hung in the air. Those were the final words that sealed their fate. I looked at David. "Fine, you can see him? But he's not in the back room." "Then where?" Vanessa asked cynically. I pointed toward the grand spiral staircase in the corner of the room that led to the second floor. "He's upstairs, in his office." "Office?" Vanessa laughed mockingly. "What work? Folding medicine boxes or begging online?" I didn't answer. I just walked toward the stairs. "Follow me." My footsteps made no sound on the thick carpet, but the footsteps of David and Vanessa behind me sounded heavy and hesitant on the marble floor. Their arrogance began to mix with confusion. This house was too big, too luxurious, and I was too calm. We went up the stairs. On the second floor, there was a long hallway with several doors. I walked to the door at the very end. Double doors made of solid wood. "Are you sure you want to see him?" I asked once more, my hand already on the door handle. "Once you see this, there is no way back." "Enough with the small talk, Sarah." David snapped. "Open the door." I nodded. "As you wish." I turned the handle and pushed the door open. David and Vanessa pushed past me. The mockery was already on their lips. They expected a pitiful sight, a dark room, smelling of medicine, with a dry, helpless figure lying in bed. Instead, their laughter died in their throats. Their mouths hung open. Their eyes widened. They didn't enter a sick person's room. They entered a futuristic headquarters. The room was very spacious. Half of the walls were made of glass, presenting a view of the city from above. The late afternoon sunlight flooded the room. The other walls were filled with bookshelves, framed awards, and expensive collectible figures. In the middle of the room, a very large L-shaped desk held equipment they had never seen in their lives. 3 ultra-wide monitors were lined up, displaying rows of complex code, 3D graphic designs, and a communication app. A computer with a transparent case glowed with blue neon lights. Several digital drawing tablets, a mechanical keyboard, and a studio-quality microphone completed the desk. What is all this?" Vanessa whispered, her voice trembling. She stepped back, bumping into David. Is this your new husband's workspace?" David didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on one point, on the chair in the middle of all that technology. A sophisticated ergonomic gaming chair, and in that chair sat a boy. His back was to us. He was wearing large headphones, and his fingers moved nimbly over the keyboard. He was focused. "Leo," I called softly. The boy didn't hear. He was too focused. "Leo!" I called again, a little louder. The boy stopped typing. He took off his headphones. "Yes, Mom. Just a second, I'm rendering." Then he rotated his chair. This was the moment I had anticipated for 6 years, the moment where time stopped for David and Vanessa. What they saw was not a paralyzed 2-year-old. What they saw was an 8-year-old boy. His face was handsome, clean, and bright. His eyes were clear. His hair was neatly combed. He was healthy. He was sturdy. And he was not in a wheelchair. Leo looked at the two strangers at the door of his room with confusion. He smiled politely. "I'm sorry, Mom. Are there guests?" "Yes," I said with a clear voice. The silence that followed was so thick, I felt I could touch it. David's face changed from pale to white as paper. His legs shook violently. He gripped the doorframe to keep himself from falling. Cold sweat began to flood his temples. Vanessa was worse. She covered her mouth with both hands. Her eyes bulged with horror and disbelief. A choked sound came from her throat. No, it's not possible." "Who is this?" David hissed. His eyes were red. "Who is this kid, Sarah? Don't play with me. This must be your new husband's kid." "No!" Vanessa screamed. "He looks like you, David. Like you when you were young." "Where is Leo?" David shouted, his voice cracking. "Where is my disabled son?" Leo, hearing that shout, looked shocked and a little scared. He stood up from his chair. He stood up. He walked from behind his desk. He walked toward me. He didn't limp. He didn't wobble. His steps were perfect. He stood beside me, then held my hand. "Mom," Leo whispered softly, looking at me. "Why is that man shouting? Why is that woman crying?" The impact was perfect. David stared at Leo's walking legs. He stared at Leo standing tall. He stared at me. His brain tried to process this impossible information. "Leo?" David said it like a question, a desperate whisper. "Leo can walk?" "He can't just walk, David," I said, my voice breaking the silence, cold and sharp. "He can run. He can jump. He can ride a skateboard in the backyard, the garden that's beside the swimming pool." I turned to my son. "Leo, let me introduce you. This is Mr. David, and this is Mrs. Vanessa." Then I looked back at them. Their faces were canvases of suffering. "And you too," I continued. "Let me introduce you. This is Leo, my son." As if it weren't enough, a notification sounded from Leo's computer. A female voice from the computer spoke in English. "Render complete. Project Tokyo is ready for upload." Leo turned to his computer. "Oh, thank goodness. Sorry, Mom. I have to send this to the clients in Japan first. They're waiting." Leo ran back to his chair. His fingers danced again. He typed some commands, then clicked send. Running. Clients in Japan. Those words were the final nails in their coffins. "I didn't marry again," I said softly, ensuring they heard every word. "I don't have a new husband. I don't need a rich man to save me." I pointed to Leo, who was now turning his chair back to us with a proud smile. "This is the source of my wealth. This is my rich husband, the child you called disabled, the child you called a burden, the child you left to rot." I stepped forward. This house, the car in the garage, the Leo Star Creations company, it all belongs to him. He bought it with his mind, with his fingers, with the talent he has while I was healing the legs. You said we're paralyzed. David's face was ruined. Not ruined by sadness, but ruined by a regret so deep, so black, that it looked physically painful. He hadn't just thrown away a child. He had thrown away a diamond mine. He had thrown away the future he had just seen in this room. Vanessa fell to the floor. She cried hysterically. It wasn't a cry of emotion. It was a cry of defeat, a cry of envy that burned her insides. "It's not possible," David groaned, hitting his head slowly. "Not possible. I... He looked at Leo, who looked back with confusion. David's eyes were now filled with desperate greed. "My son," he whispered. "Leo, my son, father. I'm your father." Those words came out of David's mouth like the hiss of a snake. It wasn't a call of love. It was a call of ownership. The cry of a gambler realizing he had thrown away his winning card 6 years ago. He stepped forward, his hands stretched out, trembling. He wasn't trying to hug Leo. He was trying to touch him, as if to make sure Leo was real, as if touching him would give him a part of all this luxury. "Leo, Daddy's here, son. Daddy came back for you." Vanessa, still sitting on the floor, watched with venomous eyes. Her crying stopped. Her face was now filled with hatred. Hatred for David, hatred for Leo, and the greatest hatred for me. She realized David was trying to switch sides. Leo, by reflex, stepped back. He hid behind my body. One hand gripped the edge of my blouse tightly. He wasn't afraid of David. He was disgusted. Children have pure instincts. "Don't touch him," I said. My voice was soft, but lethal. David's hand froze in midair. "Get away from my son," I repeated. "Sarah, he's my son!" David shouted, now hysterical. His pale face turned red. "He's my own flesh and blood. I'm his father. Leo, son, don't listen to your mother. She's poisoned your mind. Daddy's sorry. I was mistaken. I'll make up for everything. I'll buy you anything. We can travel the world together. We're family." He turned to Vanessa. "Get out of here, Vanessa. We're done. I'm going back to my family." Vanessa's eyes widened. "What? David? You're crazy." "Go!" David barked. He no longer cared about Vanessa. Vanessa was his ticket to poverty. Leo was his ticket to infinite wealth. He knelt before me again. He dropped his dignity. He cried, large crocodile tears. "Sarah, forgive me. Forgive me, Sarah. I was blinded by Vanessa. I was blinded by wealth. I sinned. I've been suffering these 6 years, Sarah. Suffering. Please, give me one more chance. For Leo's sake. Let me be his father." He tried to grab my feet. I stepped back. The room was quiet, except for the sound of David's fake sobbing and Vanessa's panting from anger. Then, a small voice broke the silence. "Mom." It was Leo's voice. He let go of my blouse. He stepped forward from behind me, standing in front of me, facing the man crying on the floor. Leo looked at David, not with hatred or anger, but with a cold curiosity, like a scientist researching a strange insect. "Leo," David said, seeing an opening. His face lit up with hope. "Leo, my son." "You're not my father," Leo said, his voice clear and firm, much more mature than his 8 years. The hope on David's face crumbled. What did you say?" "My mom said my father died a long time ago. He died the day he stole my therapy money and left me to die." David's face convulsed. Who said that?" "Your mother. She's lying." "I heard you," Leo said. He looked straight into David's eyes. "When you and that woman came earlier. I was at the top of the stairs. I heard everything. I was shocked. I didn't know Leo was there." "I heard," Leo continued, his voice trembling slightly. "Not from fear, but from anger. You laughed. You asked, "How is that disabled kid doing?" You said Leo was still crawling on the floor. You said Leo was rotting. Every word Leo spoke was a stake driven into David's heart. Leo. David tried to reach out. "Don't touch me," Leo shouted. My father wouldn't call me disabled. My father wouldn't insult me. My father? Leo turned and pointed at me. My father is my mother. She's the one who carried me to therapy. She's the one who stayed up all night teaching me. She's the one who worked until her hands bled for me. You? You're nobody. You're just a bad person who came to my house. David fell silent, shattered, not by me, but by the words from the child he discarded. I stepped forward, standing beside Leo, placing my hand on his shoulder. You heard him, David? I looked at David, who was still kneeling. Then I turned to Vanessa, who sat limp on the floor. You came here with a plan, I said, my voice echoing in the large room. You thought I got married again. You thought I was hiding Leo as my shame. You planned to blackmail my husband for $500,000. Their faces confirmed everything. But you were very wrong. There is no new husband. There is only me and my son, and you misjudged everything. You thought Leo was a shame. You called him a burden. But he is a blessing. I pointed at them both with a look of contempt. You talk about money. You talk about $500,000. You come here in your cheap suits and dresses, pretending to be successful. I walked to the window, looking down at the front gate where their car was parked. I know you're bankrupt. The wealth you stole 6 years ago? Gone. Wasted on your lifestyle, on showing off, on fake investments. I know your startup went bankrupt a year ago, David. I know Vanessa has had to sell her fake designer bags one by one just to eat. I know about the sticker on your beat-up car. I turned to face them. You didn't come here to visit. You didn't even come to blackmail. You came to beg. That is the truth. That truth, spoken loudly, was the final blow that demolished what was left of their dignity. Sarah. David crawled. He literally crawled on the shiny marble floor. He held the edge of my skirt. Sarah, help us. We were wrong. I was wrong. I'm scum. But please give me a job, anything. Be your driver. Be your gardener. Anything. Sarah, don't kick me out. Let me be near Leo. Let me fix this. Fix this, I interrupted. You can't fix what you purposely destroyed. I pulled my skirt from his grip. David looked at me with despair. He realized that 6 years ago, he hadn't just thrown away a paralyzed child. He threw away a diamond. He threw away healing. He threw away a multi-billion-dollar future that he had just seen with his own eyes. The regret was so real, so thick, and I enjoyed every second of it. Chances? I said. I looked into David's eyes, which were now swollen and red, full of fake tears of regret. Your chances ran out, David. 6 years ago, exactly at the second you stepped out of that rental door, ran off with your son's therapy money and laughed at him. But he's my son, David wailed, returning to his pathetic final argument. He's not your son anymore, I said firmly. Legally? Maybe. But in his heart? No. You sold your parental rights for $3,000 and freedom with your mistress. I turned away. I couldn't bear to see his face anymore. I walked to my desk and pressed the intercom button connected directly to the security post at the front. Security, please come to the second floor, the main office. A security guard's voice responded, Yes, Mrs. Sarah. Is there a problem? There are two beggars who sneaked in, I said, my voice loud and clear, making sure David and Vanessa heard. They are disturbing me and my son. Please escort them out of my property, right now. Understood, Ma'am. We're on our way. Hearing the word beggars, Vanessa, who had been quiet, finally exploded. She jumped up. Her face, swollen from crying, turned feral. Beggars? You call us beggars? You're arrogant, Sarah. Arrogant. Who do you think you are? You must be using dark magic to be this rich. She lunged toward me. Leo screamed, Mom! But Vanessa never reached me. Two burly security guards, who had already arrived at the door, moved quickly. One caught Vanessa, pinning her arms behind her back. The other guard approached David, who was still kneeling. Come on, sir. Please leave, the guard said firmly but politely. No, let me go. Vanessa struggled. David, do something, you fool. That's your son. That's our wealth. David, seeing Vanessa caught and seeing Leo staring at him coldly, finally realized the game was over. He had lost. Sarah, he begged once more as the guard pulled his arm to stand him up. Sarah, I beg you, don't do this. You did this to yourselves, I said. Security, take them away. The process of their eviction was the most satisfying sight I had ever seen. Vanessa screamed, cursed, and spat. She was dragged out of the room like a sack of grain. David, on the other hand, was totally broken. He didn't resist. His body was limp. He let the security guard drag him. As he was dragged past Leo, his eyes didn't leave my son. The eyes of a man seeing all his dreams, wealth, and future walking away from him. Leo, Daddy, he whispered. Leo just looked away. I and Leo followed them from above. We stood on the second-floor balcony, looking at the living room below. We saw them being dragged across the marble floor they once admired, dragged past the leather sofas they coveted. Let go! You'll regret this, Vanessa screamed. Sarah, you'll be cursed. Remember that. Leo, this is Daddy's son. Daddy, David shouted, his voice cracked and desperate. They were dragged out of the main door, which was slammed open. Their voices echoed on the porch. I walked to my window and pulled back the curtain. Leo and I watched the final scene. Outside the gate, on the quiet and beautiful complex street, the two guards threw them out. David fell flat on the asphalt. Vanessa stumbled. The luxurious automatic gate closed behind them with a soft hissing sound, separating their world from ours. There, outside the gate, the final karma happened. Vanessa, seeing David on the ground, didn't help him. Her eyes burned with pure rage. She walked up to David. Slap. A loud slap landed on David's cheek, audible even from where I stood. This is all your fault, Vanessa screamed hysterically, hitting David's chest. You stupid man. You useless man. You said I'd live comfortably. You said I'd be rich. She pointed at my house. That should be ours. I should be the mistress there. But you threw it away. You threw that child away. You threw away that gold mine just because you were too lazy to take care of him. Vanessa, stop. It hurts, David moaned. For 6 years I lived in misery with you. For 6 years I accompanied you through one bankruptcy after another. And now I know it was all for nothing because you're the stupidest man in the world. I'm done with you, David. Done! Vanessa spat in David's face. She straightened her messy dress and walked with angry steps toward the main road, likely to call a ride. Leaving David alone. David stayed slumped on the asphalt, all alone, abandoned by his mistress, evicted from his son's house, No money, no pride. Totally ruined. I closed the curtain. The show was over. I turned around. The room was quiet again, except for the soft hum of Leo's computer. I knelt before my son. I held both his shoulders. My eyes met his. Are you okay, Leo? Forgive Mom. Leo was silent for a moment. Then he smiled. A smile that erased every remaining scar in my heart. He reached out his small hand, wiping the tears I didn't realize were falling down my cheeks. I'm okay, Mom. They're bad people. I'm not afraid, he said. The important thing is, I have you. He hugged me tightly. I returned the hug, breathing in his scent. My son, my warrior, my treasure. We hugged for a long time. Finally, Leo let go. His eyes sparkled again. The topic of conversation had already shifted in his brilliant mind. Mom, he said seriously, I haven't finished telling you about my new game. It's about a warrior queen who has to protect her little prince from evil shadow monsters. Cool, right? I laughed. A pure and happy laugh. A laugh I hadn't felt in years. Very cool, honey, I said, stroking his hair. Come on, tell me everything. I sat on the sofa and Leo sat beside me, starting to chatter about level design and magic mechanisms. I listened to him, but my thoughts drifted for a moment to the front door. That door was closed, just like 6 years ago, but this time I was the one who closed it. He took all my assets and left me with a burden. But he forgot. A burden cared for with love will turn into strength. And that strength has now become his greatest lifelong regret.